Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, oh, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome into DC On Screen, a podcast about the DC Comics properties being brought to the screen, both big and small. Keep in mind, this is a spoiler-filled show. If it's been released, it's fair to talk about it here. I'm David C. Robertson, your host. Last week, we began our DCAU review with Batman the Animated Series, and this week we'll continue with part 2 of the DCAU review, talking Superman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited. Before we do, though, there's some news to weigh in on. Now, this is a busy week for us here. I'm recording this news segment sans Jason on the 4th of July. Jason and I both have places to be, so I'm going to plow through what little news there actually is. First of all, Gotham, we'll start off in television, obviously. Gotham, The Flash, and Arrow have all released synopses for their upcoming seasons. They're all terrible. They don't actually really tell you anything about what's happening in the season. They mostly just backtrack and recap what has already happened and give us really ridiculous little old-timey questions like, is anyone really safe? How could they lure Oliver back? Those are out there if you want to check them out, but I don't really feel compelled to go into that here with you guys. We're better than that, right? Candace Patton over on The Flash, she plays Iris West, was asked about her character, and she said she's found her way into Star Labs, and she's trying to get her career off the ground at Picture News. So I personally am really hoping to see Iris have more agency and more abilities to help the team and the Flash and the city that she loves so much. I want to see her stand on her own 2 feet and really contribute to the group. And, you know, if you've heard this podcast, you know that Jason and I both agree with her. We hope that is what they do with that character. Interestingly here, Andrew Kreisberg, executive producer of The Flash, is saying, Iris has been with Eddie for a long time and they were living together. Eddie didn't just die, he died to save her. Obviously, Iris is going to be dealing with that. Barry is going to be dealing with the fact that all Barry has ever wanted to do is protect Iris, and in the end it was Eddie who got to do it. That might be an interesting touch, but I really kind of hope they get over that pretty quickly. Also, apparently, they're going to be bringing in a love interest for Jo. They're looking for an African-American actress in her early 40s to play a troubled old friend of Jo's. And then they'll get together and some romance will begin a brewing. Also in The Flash, they have talked about we are going to be getting a new role, a new partner for Jo, Patty Spivot, who in the comics was a forensic scientist and a love interest for Barry. So I'm sure that'll be amping up the CW-ness. Legends of Tomorrow concept art was released, and it's really badass. Go check it out. Go look around for it. It's everywhere. It's concept art of superheroes fighting using their powers. It's pretty awesome. Over in movie news, Zack Snyder, director of Batman v Superman, says that Wonder Woman plays a super important part. In a lot of ways, she's the gateway drug to the rest of the Justice League. Now, Gal Gadot, the actress playing Wonder Woman, said, there are so many expectations for this character, it's impossible not to be a little nervous about it. But she loves doing the swordplay stuff. It's another skill to add to my collection. But she is still working on the lasso. Entertainment Weekly, by the way, has released 6 new photos from Batman vs. Superman. And they're about what you'd expect. There's a picture of Batman and Superman standing toe-to-toe. A picture of Bruce Wayne and Diana Prince meeting at a fancy shindig. An alternate shot of a scene we caught a glimpse of in the trailer. Of people with funky face paint all reaching out in worship to Superman. Batman in his Dark Knight Returns armor standing on a rooftop beside the bat signal. Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor with long red hair. It looks like a really bad wig, honestly. He's standing in front of some crystalware. a picture of Zack Snyder directing Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne. Now, this is not an advertisement for Entertainment Weekly. They're not a sponsor of the show or anything. Not that we wouldn't take their money. But I'll definitely be picking up this issue. It has Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman rocking the cover, and that might just wind up framed and on my wall. That is pretty much everything for the news. There was some mention of Zack Snyder and Ben Affleck talking about what makes the DC movies different than the Marvel movies and how they want to be a little more weighty and realistic. But if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that we don't really get into the whole Marvel versus DC debate. I love Marvel and I love DC. I love elements of both of those universes. I've been an avid reader of Marvel and DC comics for years. I've never really understood the hatred some fans have for either company. I love the Marvel movies, but I'm not rooting for DC to fail. I don't think, they're shit or anything. I think that the DC properties have been mishandled a lot over the years. But that's just kind of the way it goes. And damn it, we are lucky to actually be able to see these comic book creations come to life, especially when you look back upon the history and see how close some of these characters were to being canceled at certain points, or not have, how close we were to never having some of these characters. So if we're going to get a big screen or small screen rendition of any of these characters, I'm on board. All right, that's everything. Now we'll get back to our DCAU review.
So then the next stop, if you've watched Batman the Animated Series, is Superman the Animated Series.
That is the next stop, yes. Superman the Animated Series, still Paul Dini, still Bruce Timm, all those cats, Alan Burnett, everyone you've come to know and love from Batman the Animated Series as far as the production team. An unassailably brighter show than Batman the Animated Series.
It is. In context, it's the Flash to the Arrow. It is the happy kind of happy-go-lucky-ish counterpart to a very dark brother.
It is, and still a fine thing.
And it really is. Like, the thing is, if you watch Superman the Animated Series, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to think, okay, now this is a little lighthearted, but you're going to watch anyway, because what they're going to start doing is introducing people like, come on, man, there's Lobo. There's several episodes with Lobo.
That's one of the really exciting things.
Watch Lobo and not enjoy yourself.
Especially in the late 90s, when all us Batman TAS fans were sitting around going, well, it'd be cool if they could do the Justice League one day.
And then you get into Superman the Animated Series, and not force up, I think it's like 4 episodes in or something, you've already got him meeting the Flash.
Right, and this is...
the foundation is being poured.
We're talking about... I mean, we do meet people within the Justice League... or in the Justice League in the animated series, like Zatanna. There are certain characters that cross over better with Batman thematically, but most of them cross over better with Superman. Right. Within Superman the Animated Series alone, I mean, you have Batman crossover, which is, as I said, whole hell of a lot of fun. You get Lobo.
Anytime you see the world's finest on something, just do it. Just watch it, read it, whatever it is.
Right.
Consume it.
The main man part 1 and 2 is Lobo and Superman. You have there's a Flash episode. There's an Aquaman
some awful guitar work, but it's like my least favorite part of the Superman the Animated Series is the theme behind Lobo every time he comes on. It's just 80s. Well, look at Lobo. Wreck.
Yeah. If you look at Lobo, do you think that would be music you would enjoy? It's almost obnoxious, which is.
He's interspatially. If there's some combination of like Fall Out Boy and Poison, that's what Lobo listens to. I would get killed around Lobo in 30 seconds because I would immediately look at his music and scowl, and he would rip my fucking head off.
Like, that's one of the beautiful things about Shirley Walker. She had a way of she could compose a piece of music. She could create themes for characters that stick with you and stay true to the character. And that was true of Batman the Animated Series
right now. I mean, I still know it.
I can hum Two-Face's theme right now.
Exactly. These things will stick with you, and they train you to them because every time you see them, they're there. And the Joker shows up throughout the canon of this whole little of this particular universe. And
these aren't like
you hear
one-trick ponies either. These aren't one-trick ponies. These themes are manipulated. They're ensconced in pathos almost. That's what it feels like. You can read a scene and the mood of the character through the version of that theme that's playing. And they do no less with Superman the Animated Series.
Right.
Shirley Walker came the closest to creating the quintessential Superman theme outside of John Williams that I've ever seen.
Right. And we were talking about marches with Man of Steel, and I still I think their time has kind of come and gone. I'm not judging that. I'm not saying I wish it wasn't still around. I just think that it's probably not something we're going to see for a while. I just think the Zimmer-esque atmospheric theme is what's going to win the day for a good long minute. But some of these shows were like the last times that I thought they went really, really well. Anytime you're having a bad day, just remember that Danny Elfman Batman theme. Everything you do will have more import. Everything you do will seem like it matters.
Mm-hmm.
You can fold laundry to dun, 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 and you will fold the fuck out of that laundry.
Yeah.
Now, two things about the Superman animated series that stand out in my memory, and they're all character related.
Okay. All right.
Because the animated series itself, like I don't even remember what the story arc is. I really don't. It does seem like, and Batman has the same thing. There's all of these characters have arcs, but the show itself, it's not like there's from season 1 through 4 something that happened that carries over that much. There are parts of it that do, and there are episodes that do, and all of the characters have an arc, but it's within that context. It's not you had to watch the entire season to unravel a mystery. We're not doing it's not Lost or something. Not even close. But the two things that stood out the most were Metallo's a badass. Like I genuinely fear him. And Bizarro may be the cutest thing I've ever seen.
Bizarro, like a lot of the thing about these arcs, a lot of them carry over into Justice League because how do you do Superman and not do it on a global, if not cosmic scale?
Right. Don't give me Superman and not give me the Justice League. That's cruel.
Superman starts off with they do a 3-part episode. It's a 3-part origin story. We start out on Krypton. We wind up in Metropolis. We were introduced to Lex Luthor, Clancy Brown doing a fantastic voice work as Lex Luthor. Tim Daly as Superman is really just brilliant casting. He does a fine job. And if you haven't checked out his...
I never would have thought it, too. I never would have thought it, and then I heard his voice, and God bless you, Andrea Romano. You did it again.
Andrea Romano is one of my personal heroes. Tim Daly, she
never misses.
By the way, if you haven't checked out Tim Daly's YouTube channel, his son has also done Superman. He's also portrayed Superman in, I believe it was the Flashpoint Paradox animated movie. And my God, they've got a great sense of humor. I mean, you see people like Nathan Fillion pop up, Michael Rosenbaum, who was Lex Luthor on Smallville and The Flash and Justice League. Brandon Routh shows up. Dean Cain shows up. They have great, like they're playing themselves, but they're all very proud of their Superman lineage.
Right.
It's really fun. It's a lot of fun. But the overall themes, to me, like the overall arc for Superman is his like the amount of power he has and what place he really has in our society.
Right. Yeah,
from the first episode to, I mean, Brave New Metropolis is an episode where Lois, one of my favorites, where Lois is thrown into a parallel universe, and in that universe she has died, and Superman was so grief-stricken and so destroyed over not being able to save her that he sets up his version of a utopian society, and he's teamed up with Lex Luthor for the greater good. And they've basically created this dystopian future, almost like this. Like Lex is, has been able to corner the market on everything because he basically rules the world with Superman. So everything looks very futuristic, but the people they're peasants, and just Lois from our universe coming over into this universe has to snap him back into his right mind. Like, what is wrong with you? Why would you do this? And his whole reasoning is, I lost you. Even from that episode, and even the Bizarro episodes, since you mentioned them, like if Superman were at all, mentally challenged for whatever reason or mentally hindered, this is what he would have to deal with, and he's faced with that, and he winds up taking Bizarro to his own little world where no one is, and Bizarro winds up painting faces on rocks and running around saving people.
Oh, it's
quote unquote people.
It's freaking adorable, is what it is. Like 2 episodes stand out with Bizarro, and the first one early on, when you introduced to Bizarro, it's him learning that he's not Superman. And by the end of that episode, what points it out is that even Bizarro knows that a basic premise of being Superman is you save Lois. Superman always saves Lois. That's in the DNA. And he's trying to save her in the middle of a crumbling, factory. And Superman's the one who comes in and lifts the giant piece of rock off of Lois's trapped leg and grabs her, hoists her, and starts to take her out. And you see it just crush Bizarro. You see it crush his tiny, strange face. He just he realizes that he's not the hero. But at the same time, he stalls the building, or he stalls that particular portion of the building from breaking long enough for them to get away. And Lois gives him a quick, like, over Clark's shoulder, gives him a quick, you are a hero. And it's damned touching. And that the thing is, like, the Bizarro they've got is that's all he really wants. He's got Superman's DNA. He just wants to be good, but he doesn't know how. So in his version, he wants to be bad. He doesn't really know exactly what he's supposed to do. And it's a wonderful little arc they gave him, because at the end of it, Superman basically just confines him to this world where he's just alone on this giant rock, and he can't really hurt anybody. So he just confines him to a place so far away that he can't hurt anybody else. But for Bizarro, that was fine, and he does. He sets up these little rocks, and he's built this little town out of stones. And what he does is basically, and you see him kind of kick over one rock and have it stumble, and he's created this tiny little universe for himself where he protects these rocks, and that's his world. And he's happy now because he finally has something to protect. And that part, it really is, that just watching him finally have something to, finally have something to be a hero, even if it is just a bunch of rocks. That's enough for him. And it was enough for me. I was damn happy for him.
Sure, yeah. Like I've said, a lot of this stuff is trailing into Justice League, and they didn't know they were doing Justice League at this point. They One of the big things in Superman, and again, this is spoiler territory, but
the whole thing is we're bordering on spoilers. We're hoping that if you haven't seen this, we'll intrigue you enough that you'll forget what we said happened and just go watch it.
There's a character in Superman, in the Superman animated series, named Dan Turpin, and he's basically Superman's Commissioner Gordon. And for the longest time, we're building up to Darkseid making an appearance, and he does. He finally does. And Superman, of course, eventually defeats him. And
with one of the greatest lines, that is that episode where he has that wonderful fight. Best line in Superman's the actual series is he's about to throw down with Darkseid, and that's Superman's fighting style. He gets his ass beat for a second, and then he kind of swells up and goes at him. And about the time he's at the get swole portion of the show, he tells Darkseid, "I feel like I live in a world made of cardboard. I can never use my full strength, but you can take it, can't you, big boy?" And just commences God hitting another God level hitting. Like even Batman kind of steps back and, okay, we should stay out of the way. This is don't get caught up.
Now, Darkseid is with the help of Orion, Superman manages to send Darkseid back to Apokolips and sends all the invasion forces back. But Darkseid decides to take the life of Dan Turpin. They actually do. They kill off a main character in the Superman canon, and that propels further storylines. Darkseid is the recurring villain here, as the recurring big bad. Lex Luthor is always there, but when you get to Legacy Part 1 and 2, and we've seen we have Supergirl shows up and all sorts of things, but Legacy Part 1 and 2 is like we come in and Darkseid has brainwashed Superman into believing that he was raised by Darkseid instead of the Kents. He's loyal to Apocalypse. He's loyal to Darkseid. And no one on Earth trusts Superman anymore. The government has taken Supergirl, and they're keeping her chained. And that's how this series basically ends, with, once again, Superman trying to overcome what's happened to him and find that, once again, he's trying to find his place in the world. He's trying to figure out where he belongs because no one trusts him anymore. And that leads heavily into some of the Justice League stuff with Amanda Waller and the government coming after the Justice League, not trusting the Justice League. And they even bring up that, Superman has been brainwashed before and he's been used against us.
Right. Which every time you see Batman hatching some sort of what would I do if this guy got out of control plan, don't get on to him. This is exactly what you want from him.
Everything that happens in Superman the Animated Series is build up to what goes down in Justice League and Justice League Unlimited.
Actually sounds about right.
Before there are lots of nice episodes for Jimmy Olsen, for Lois Lane, for building the Superman portion of that universe. But Superman the Animated Series is not my favorite. Batman the Animated Series always will be.
Right.
And even Paul Dini and his crew have mentioned how hard it was to keep going with Superman the Animated Series. And there were much less episodes of Superman than there were of Batman, I should also point out.
Yeah. And they it seemed like they had kind of run their course a little bit on the series, both series. And now I remember this story popping up where what had really happened was they went in and they were looking for new episode orders, and essentially the WB told them, we want a show about, like a teenage Batman. And they thought that was the dumbest idea they'd ever freaking heard until they made it. And they left the office, and by the time they had gotten off the elevator, they had already kind of come up with, well, what would be kind of cool. And by the time they were walking out to their cars and looking to split up in the parking lot, as you do, to everyone go to their separate vehicles and go home, they had devised Batman Beyond.
Right. And yeah, WB wanted it to be all set in the future as well. A teenage Batman in the future. They didn't want it to be... It sounded like an exec just sort of rattling off everything he had recently seen poll well. Well, the future's up and the future's trending, and Batman maybe a young one, because it'd be like Robin with Batman, and then we'll put him in the future and lots of gadgets and I don't know, some sex and go. But that's always been apparently the way that they did it, where like Superman, it was Superman, God, where WB would just come to them and say like, okay, we're tired of this. Well, you should do this now. Oh, okay. You want us to do Superman now? Yeah. All right, well, we're tired of Superman. We want you to do future Batman. Something in the future with Batman, and he's a kid. What? Oh, okay. But somehow these guys, and they delivered a great product and kept it all canon. And they just kept building upon this canon. That's one of the most impressive things to me.
I'm not sure they knew how much they were really building. I'm not sure how forward thinking it was. It almost seems like they were building and they were playing on familiar concepts, and if they did something they liked, they always took a minute to call back to it. But I don't know how much they really played together.
I mean, I knew they
best crossover out of Superman the Animated Series. My favorite, Girls' Night Out.
Really?
I know, and it's only because of this. There's just one scene where Batgirl is like flying around on Supergirl's shoulders, and I just thought that's the most that's got to be one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I don't know why. It just seemed like one hell of a team up.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with the team up. It was just that the episode was a little lacking for me, but I mean, it was still fine.
I enjoyed their Supergirl though.
I think my favorite episode of my favorite team up episode was World's Finest. Easily. The World's Finest.
You have to take that
movie, but
out of consideration for me to get to Girls' Night Out.
Oh, that's the Citizen Kane's of crossovers? This
Yes. It is.
All right. One of my favorite episodes was The Late Mr. Kent, where the crooked cop, we don't know he's crooked completely, but he tries to kill Clark Kent, and of course Superman survives, and so then like Superman's trying to basically solve the murder of Clark Kent, and it basically ends with the friggin' cop or the detective who's been trying to quote unquote figure out who killed Clark Kent, even though he did it. He's in the gas chamber. They actually have him strapped down in the gas chamber, and as the green smoke is coming out to kill him, he suddenly realizes, oh my God, Clark Kent is Superman. Clark Kent is Superman, and like no one can hear him because he's behind the glass.
And yep, they let him go.
Yeah. Oh man.
And then next episode we get Metallo with John Henry Irons. John Henry Irons done by Dorn, by the way. Freaking
right.
Michael
Right.
Dorn.
Wasn't Metallo Malcolm McDowell?
He was. He
Freaking
was.
Clockwork Orange, man.
Yeah,
That's a fine thing.
The people who wanted to be on the show, just a small sampling of the people who apparently wanted to be on this. Melissa Joan Hart showing up as Saturn Girl. Jason
and then
Priestley
later as
even
Dee Dee's.
showing up as Chameleon Boy. What?
And then later as Dee Dee's. Melissa Joan Hart was Dee Dee's in Return of the Joker.
Oh, yeah. William H. Macy pops on for not even a real character, just director of the Paranormals Institute.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, isn't it?
People wanted to be on it. I mean, all right, Mixus Spitlicks, Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah, Gilbert Gottfried. And then, of course, once you get into Justice League, you've got Amy Acker as the Huntress. You've got Nathan Fillion. You have Adam Baldwin. You have, God, man, just so many
Stephen
people
Root
coming
showed
in.
up at some point as like
Stephen
I don't
Root.
remember who he showed up as, but people wanted to be a part of this.
They did, and for good reason.
It's an easy afternoon paycheck to go be a voice actor for one episode of something. It's an easy afternoon. You go to work at like 11. You're out by 2. You make a decent chunk of money, and you get to be a part of the Superman and Batman universe. Any day, I'm on that.
This is like the old Adam West series where it was so popular that celebrities wanted to be on the show, and they would always wind up being like these cats who popped out of the window when Batman and Robin are walking up the side of a building. And
right.
But this is that version of that where they just come in and they'll be like, sure, I'll be this random person that we didn't think we were going to have a voice for. Sure, I'll be the Huntress. Sure, I'll be, whoever the hell, an alternate version of Green Lantern. Why not?
Yeah. I would do it. I really would. I wouldn't care who you made me be. I'd be happy to go be a villain of the week somewhere.
Now, coming off of Superman go ahead.
Oh, I was going to do the same thing you were.
Coming off of Superman, we go into Batman Beyond. We shoot, decades into the future. Bruce already has the Batman Beyond outfit. He already that's his Batman outfit. He doesn't call himself Batman Beyond, by the way. That's just the title of the show.
It is.
And
it ends up being a very key set of words.
Mm-hmm.
That will come to bear later.
We start off, this is the same Batman the Animated Series universe. Once again, Batman is saving the granddaughter, I believe it is, of the daughter or granddaughter of Veronica Vreeland, who was the socialite that scorned the Penguin back in animated series. Basically has a heart attack, or begins to, and to save his own life, pulls a gun on a thug and decides, it's time. I've got to give this up. The day that I pull a gun on someone is the day that it's over.
Right.
Hangs it
he
up.
He can no longer support his own idea. His body physically cannot do this anymore.
So we flash forward another 12 years or so, and there's this kid who has been sent to juvie. He's been, he's kind of a bad kid, voiced to
Wayward,
perfection by Will Friedle, Eric Matthews on Boy Meets World, or Ron Possible on Kim and Possible. Very good voice actor, pretty good actor in his own right. Can play a lot of different ranges. And he nails it as Terry McGinnis, this bad egg kid with a good heart who winds up getting chased by a gang of jokers. There are all these gangs of jokers, like they look up to the old Joker, but only the aesthetic and the villainy. They don't. Yeah. They're not truly jokers, and Bruce makes a quick point of that.
They like the clown motif, but they don't. And there's a moment
they don't get it. They don't get it.
In Return of the Joker, as you might expect, he comes back and he kind of meets these kids and just has no respect for them whatsoever.
Right. He meets a group of those kids. There are always different groups of the Jokers. Like they just kind of clan about,
It's a kind of gang. It's like a template of gang that exists around the city. And McGinnis makes his introduction, as Terry McGinnis. He's not Batman in the origin of this. And he shows up and already starts kind of kicking some of their asses, which is a bad thing. You don't want to be the guy in this town who actually took on a Joker gang because, well, they've got really not a lot on their plate. So you become a very high priority.
Mm-hmm.
It's not ideal, but he does. He's got the same. He has the backbone of what it takes to be Batman. So sure enough, he sees these people being mischievous idiots and causing harm, and he stops them. Simple as that. The most basic instinct a Batman can have. And
they chase him all the way out to the outskirts of the city, and the fight goes to the right outside the gates of Wayne Manor. Mm-hmm. And as Terry's about to meet his demise, here's this grumpy cat-looking old man with a cane who tells him, "Get off my property." And they actually do. They try to take down Bruce Wayne, and Bruce, even in his aged "I have a cane" state, beats their asses with said cane.
Right.
But
I mean, we're talking wrinkles, the jawlines protruding a little bit. This is an old man. This is not the Bruce Wayne you grew up with. It is an old.
Except
dude.
It is. It's Kevin Conroy.
I mean, it is exactly that guy. It is Kevin Conroy too. It's precisely that guy. But there's nothing left of his physicality. And yet still, him and a cane, that's more than you need for a couple of, Jokers.
He kicks their asses, saves Terry, but in doing so has another spell with his heart, and Terry takes him into the house to get his pills and whatnot. And as Bruce is resting, Terry discovers, oh, this guy used to be Batman. And there we go.
Now, two things, though, and Beyond is a great series. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
It's fun as hell.
It really it is. It's a lot of fun. They do a lot. They take on a lot of new villains because they went into the future, and that gave them an opportunity to create new villains. And we're not hating on them for not using the villains that were already there. They stepped into a new canon so they could play, and they do. They come up with a couple of cool ones. Shriek is my favorite. Ink. I think her name's Ink.
Ink is badass. Yeah.
She's scary. Shriek.
Yeah,
though,
she's
My
awesome.
favorite. Just basically a sound engineer that he ends up in the Ace Chemicals kind of situation. Just a sound engineer. He gets stopped by Terry McGinnis, who at this point is Batman, and it causes him to go deaf. So he ends up transforming himself into this kind of technology augmented super sound being. It's weird. He gets all of his he uses just sound waves to destroy whole chunks of the city at a time when he wants to. It ends up being really kind of ominous because one of the fun parts when they do his episodes is they take out the score and you hear it like he hears it, just nothing. You hear a little pulse and you hear a little wobble and a warble, but nothing. And those episodes end up being a lot of fun.
Right.
Because it's amazing what happens when you take the score out of something and do it well.
That Shriek episode, the first, I think, maybe the second, was one of my favorites.
The two things,
where Shriek,
not to spend too much time on Beyond, but for me personally, what happens with him is Terry McGinnis is masquerading as Batman, and that's what it feels like until that one Shriek episode called I think it's Babel.
Okay.
He basically ultimatums the city that he creates a Tower of Babel effect, and he creates a sound. It's a frequency that disrupts the ability to read throughout the city. So the whole thing's kind of caving in on itself because you'd be amazed what would happen if you gave everyone dyslexia all at once. It would turn some people crazy, and it does. It's the city's turning on itself, and Shriek essentially tells McGinnis that he has two choices: he can let the city crumble, or he can turn himself in. And this is the first moment where I thought, okay, this kid is Batman. Because he does. He makes the simple choice. He goes and turns himself in. He doesn't think he's going to make it out of this. He goes and sacrifices himself for the city. Of course, he does make it out because he's kind of a badass. But he didn't know.
Let's see, one of my favorite episodes.
Where I really knew, like, okay, this kid is my Batman. Okay, I'll take the mantle being handed here.
I love the bit where Shriek actually puts Bruce in the hospital. Like, he's got Bruce's, like, hearing voices that tell him that Bruce, jump out of the window. Bruce, jump out of the window. Kill yourself, blah, blah, blah. And there's this great bit at the end where, Bruce was like, I seriously thought I was going crazy. And then Terry was like, well, why didn't you jump out of the window? And he was like, well, there's just one thing. The voice kept calling me Bruce. And in my own head, I don't call myself Bruce.
And that's the secret. By the way, one of the great secrets for why BTAS through all of this worked, why that Batman character is the one that we hold in such high regard, they got it right. The Bruce thing is a complete facade. When he goes to bed at night, he's talking to himself as Batman with that voice to Batman. The Bruce thing that's a shroud he puts on so he can go out and take care of some of the Wayne Enterprises business. But
to be clear, Batman Beyond is basically the story of how Bruce gets a new body, and sometimes that body doesn't do what he wants them to do.
Every now and then, yeah. And
because Bruce
thing,
is,
the Batman
for the most part, sitting in a
culminates
Batcave, looking outside of, looking through a camera, seeing everything that Terry is doing and telling him what to do. And Terry doesn't agree all the time. It's a lot of fun.
It is, and Terry's out there kind of learning how to take on this whole. It's a very large set of shoes. It really is, and he's doing his best with them. But there were two turning points. The first time when I actually saw him ready to die for New Gotham. That's the first part where I kind of had to admit, all right, well, this kid could be Batman. Right. But then you get to Return of the Joker, which to be sure you have to make it through the entire series. But if you get to Return of the Joker. It's the Joker, the Joker proper, the one that Batman has trouble with, and not to kill the movie for you, but he stops him.
Yeah,
Terry McGinnis, without the help of Bruce Wayne, stops the Joker proper, and that's where you really have to stop and admit, you know what, you stopped the Joker, man. All right, you're the Bat.
And by the way, that movie, goes back and bridges the gap between the Batman the Animated Series or Batman New Adventures and Batman Beyond. We find out what happened to the kid Robin. Batman Beyond, we actually find out what happened to Mr. Freeze. We find out what happened to Bane. We know what happens to Barbara Gordon. She becomes commissioner.
She becomes a huge portion of this. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a huge part. And we even find out what happened to Dick.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
So, the final episode of, if you don't count Batman Beyond Return of the Joker as the final episode of Batman Beyond, which is really a movie, and if you find that movie, get the uncut version. Do yourself the favor. Get yourself the uncut version.
Do not
find out what happened
watch the edited version.
It leaves out some key elements because they were too brutal. So, anyway.
But it is everything you want out of a Joker story. It's exactly as brutal as it should be.
It is.
Get the right version. Do not dick around with your own integrity and get that other terrible thing.
But the final episode of the actual series, I think, was a Viper story. But there's the true ending that really goes into Justice League is called The Call, where we find is a big 2-part story where the Justice League of the future wants Terry McGinnis as part of the Justice League. And it very quickly becomes a murder mystery. And some really messed up stuff happens. But it, for the first time, really shows what a Justice League show can do. And soon thereafter, we actually do. We get Justice League. Now, I don't want to crap on Static Shock. It's there. It's had crossovers with all of these things. It was running concurrently to at least 3 of these series. So, due respect to Static Shock. It's just not as good as any of the other ones.
I don't know why exactly it wasn't. It just didn't. I don't know. It didn't hit me the same. But all right. Look at The Call. The Call Part 2, written by teleplay by Stan Berkowitz, written by Alan Burnett and Paul Dini. Mm-hmm. If you know this universe well enough to know those 3 names, there's nothing that should stop you from watching everything you have to get to this episode.
Right.
Come on. You can't beat that for a team.
Now, Justice League does a lot of things. Justice League winds up, they've got big 3-part episodes, huge, almost movies. Mm-hmm. And the core members, you've got Superman, who's now replaced
individually as movies every now and then.
They do
a titanic amount of data.
You have Superman, who's now he's not Tim Daly anymore. He's George Newbern, which to me sounds like it's the same character from the animated series. He sounds like Tim Daly. Tim Daly's voiced a bit Hickory Smoked, if that makes any sense. Like he looks a little. They've redesigned him a little bit. He looks like he's been seasoned with age. I don't know why, but I was disappointed to find that Tim Daly wasn't coming back, but then George Newbern just kicked it out of the park, just knocked it out of the park. We get Wonder Woman, we get good old Kevin Conroy Batman, Michael Rosenbaum as the Flash, we get Hawk Girl, we get Phil LaMarr as John Stewart Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter is finally a part of the group, and they come together to stop a
nothing
big
gave me more joy
crisis.
than seeing Jean. Finally seeing him done really well.
Really, really well. And for the first 2 seasons, those are the 7 cats you get. These are big epic storylines leading into like dark side stories and Mongol stories and everything cosmic DC that you've wanted to see all this time. And they're done with the seriousness of Batman the Animated Series. They look better than the new Batman Adventures or Superman or Batman Beyond. They are done like movies. These things are well done. This is the best any of this has looked since Batman the Animated Series, by the way. This looks fantastic. Oh my God, like the character development of Hawk Girl and Jon Stewart.
It's fantastic. I've never cared so much about Hawk Girl.
The Starcrossed was an amazing episode. Starcrossed, and she's it's just it pains me. It's so good, and we even get little fourth wall jokes, little meta jokes where Hawk Girl's kind of in a precarious situation, and they kind of play upon real life for a second. And Batman mentions all of the I hate Hawk Girl web rings online, and she's like, there are people on the internet who hate me, and he's like, he names off like the exact number of websites, like this many thousand websites that are dedicated to hating Hawk Girl, and which are all part of 43 web rings, which are, I mean, is great. And she's just in the elevator with him, staring, dismayed and befuddled by how this possibly could have happened. Part of the
she's a superhero. Why? I'd be confused too. But I help people. Why do they hate me?
Right. But one of the great parts of Justice League is, once again, they're dealing with what part do these characters, as they are, these gods, have in society. Do we want them there? Yeah, they save us, but they're also, and they deal with that in episodes like the Justice Lords, where we see Superman come in and he's had enough of Luthor and he lobotomizes him. We have and then that's an alternate universe, and we get our crew coming over to the Justice Lord universe and going, oh my God, what have you done? Mm-hmm. And I think it's Batman who winds up defeating Batman, who goes, our parents would be so proud.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of crossover with that, and he is like it's how he taunts the Batman he's there with. It's part of his game for turning him a little bit. Is just getting under his skin with that line. Something they did in universe. No crossovers, no multiverse necessary. It was I forget which season it instigates, but at some point the Watchtower does use their giant ass laser. And needless to say, the government is not happy to learn that there's a watchtower and that it has a giant nuclear-level laser that they have no control over.
Right.
In doing so, Superman disbands the League temporarily.
Right. And, well, he tries to, and then Green Arrow stands up. Right. Ollie proper, I'll say.
Not proper.
Who says, like, this is like, we're getting into unlimited stuff now. After Darkseid, he and Superman have a final row.
Justice League proper, and then they just go Justice League Unlimited, where they just took all the freaking chains off. And you get everybody.
These aren't big 3-part episodes anymore. These are 30-minute episodes. Mm-hmm. But you'll get stories with
Unlimited goes
Green
back and
Lantern
forth a little bit.
Yeah, you'll have like a Green Arrow story, Green Arrow and Black Canary hanging out, or Black Canary and the Huntress, and oh my God, the question. Jeffrey Combs is the question.
The question. One of my favorite Dark Horse characters.
There are big overarching stories involving the government coming after the League. There are big They're big cosmic stories. It wraps up beautifully. Like, I can't say enough about how funny the Flash is, how amazing Booster Gold is in his episode.
They use the Flash every time they have to hit a nerve. With Batman, it's one where Batman kind of jettisons the Flash and a couple other people off a ship so he can take it. He's basically
Batman is sacrificing himself.
It's one of the classic Batman sacrifices himself and kicks them off the ship so it doesn't take them too. And you just see the Flash like look and see and realize what he's done, and then just turn his back and like slump against the glass. And it's enough to kind of crush you a second. Like it hits him. And then later, when
he thinks,
like I referred to,
he thinks Batman is coming with him.
You what?
He thought Batman was coming with him, and then he jettisons the pod and goes, "Gentlemen, it's been an honor."
Oh yeah.
And oh my God.
Slumps. And there's later when Toyman kind of gets rid of Superman for a while, and it ends up being a whole time thing. Long story. Go watch the episode. But
and Lobo tries to take his place.
I know it gets weird. But there's a moment early on after Superman's gone, and everyone's really mourning because he's straight up gone, and you just have Wally. I forget who he's asking. I think it's John. Just asks him, what do we do? Like, I was always able to be, playful, and I was always able to tell jokes because he was always there behind me. What do we do now?
Yeah.
Facing the idea that Wally West is considering taking life seriously, that should give you pause.
Yeah.
Wally West don't take shit seriously.
Again, this show was also great. I mean, it hit all the great emotional, dramatic points. Also hits a lot of the great comedic points. Once you get into Unlimited, you have a Luthor who has basically been driven out of his company. He's hell-bent on destroying the Justice League. He creates the League of Doom, as it were, in some iteration. That even includes Bizarro. And you have some great lines between Bizarro and Luthor. Who I assume joined it because he thought
it was a good thing.
And this isn't your Super Friends. Yeah, this isn't your Super Friends League of Doom. This is pretty serious. But they do hit some great comedic points. At some point, Luthor almost inadvertently becomes mind swapped with the Flash, which is really fun. As Michael Rosenbaum played Lex Luthor and the Flash, so he played Lex Luthor in Smallville and then the Flash on Justice League. But there's a great bit where
probably how the idea occurred to somebody.
Lex Luthor is just annoyed as hell at being inside the Flash, and he's like, well, one of the outcomes of this is that one of the great things about this is I can finally find out who the Flash is. And he takes off the mask and stares in the mirror for a second, and he goes, I have no idea who this is.
There's nothing to Wally West, man. He's not. You weren't going to pull that mask off and find Bruce Wayne or something. He's just a dude.
And subsequently, you have Luthor with the mind of the Flash in that episode, who's in the bathroom trying to figure out what he's going to do. And some villains come out, and they're like, so what's this big plan you're talking about? And he's like, I'll get to that, I guess. And he goes to walk out, and they're like, wait a minute. Aren't you going to wash your hands? And he's like, no, because I'm evil.
Right. Oh, and one of my favorite little moments that... it's barely a moment, but somebody's teasing Batman in a cafeteria, essentially just setting him up for failure here. But they're asking him about Wonder Woman, and he gives this good 10, 15-second speech about how she's a beautiful and powerful woman, and basically stops himself and does the old, she's behind me, isn't she? And they're just smiling at him. Yep.
Yeah, and it's not a
Batman,
thing...
Even Batman getting caught in that kind of moment, and just all he does is kind of and walk away, but...
It's not a huge thing they play on. They do play on the Wonder Woman is attracted to Batman angle, and vice versa. Like where like he'll save the day or something, and she's just like, damn, okay, dude, and she kind of gives him a kiss on the cheek for a second, and he blushes.
Right.
And everyone's kind of talking behind their
Harley
backs.
Kissed him, by the way.
He did. We're talking about Batman here. He's not
used to.
This isn't something he's not used to that. He's like, I'm scary, damn it. Stop.
Right.
Don't kiss
I'm scary. Don't kiss me. No, fear me. Take your lips away. I'm the night.
One of the best bits was when they actually go the once and future thing. They go into the future, and the future's all messed up. And Terry McGinnis is there. Static Shock is there as an older man. And we have young Batman and old Bruce Wayne talking. And they're kind of cobbling up a plan together, and Terry is rattling about something, and they both turn to him and go, "Shut up." They're talking, and he's like, "Well, I mean, what plan do you have? Or do you have a plan?" And the young Batman goes, "Well, that depends. Are criminals still a superstitious and cowardly lot?" And it was a weird line for me, but I enjoyed the hell out of it.
It's a throwback, but Dini always uses that. Even go to his Brave and the Bold lines, he always uses superstitious and cowardly lot. It's in the freaking writer's Bible for BTAS.
It is, and I mean, it was in like the first issue I think it was in the first issue of Batman proper. Like when you go back and look at like the Untold Origin, back in like 1940. But yeah, it's Justice League. I can't say enough about it. Then they do. They have an epilogue episode. They thought it was the last episode, and they wound up doing like 12 or so more episodes. But they have an episode called
they
Epilogue.
Had plenty more time, they thought, but they were ready to throw all their chips in for this episode.
Right, and
they remortgaged the house, man.
The episode ties up the ongoing storyline that's been going on with the government in Justice League Unlimited, and ties up Batman Beyond. We flash forward, is the proper end to Batman Beyond. We get Terry McGinnis as a full-grown man talking to a very old Amanda Waller, who has, by all accounts, mellowed quite a bit on her views with in regards to the Justice League and Batman in particular.
Well, she says, over time I came to trust him. And she does. Like at first, she explains at first we were enemies, and then after watching him, save the city and the world over and over again, after a while you kind of just have to admit he's a good dude. That's what it came down to.
But that episode,
she starts to respect him, and
man, like the day that she learned to respect him when the what was it, the Royal Flush Gang member Ace. She had these. She has
Royal
these
Flush Gang
mind powers.
Version whatever .0.
Right. She has this. It's the little girl. It's a little girl. She has mind powers, and they're killing her. And she's created this whole bubble of a reality out, in Central Park or something, and it's growing. It'll destroy everything. And they send Batman in because he's the only one who'll do what is necessary. And they're like, "You've got to take her out."
And
he has no intention of doing that.
She gives him this little device that's meant to take her out. I mean, and it's not, it's meant to kill her. It gives her a device to kill a small girl. She gives him a device. Yeah.
And he gets
in thinking you're the only one who could possibly do it.
And he goes in with no real intent to kill, and finds a scared little girl who knows what's happening to her.
Well, she says that she scanned his brain, and that's why she knew that he was never going to use that device, and he just kind of agrees with it. I think it's like, am I going to die? Yes. Soon? Yes.
But Batman just sits there, and he just stays with the little girl as she's dying.
And she's just sitting there on the swing, like all this chaos around her, but she's got that, she has a pretty, it's a pretty impressive set of mental powers. So all this chaos around her, and for her, she's just sitting on a swing in the middle of a playground. And she asks him when he confirms that she's going to die, and she just asks him, "Will you stay with me?" And without saying a word, he just walks over to the swing beside her and sits down. And he looks almost goofy on this swing set, just this giant man sitting next to her.
But you can't tell because of the tears. You can't tell because of the tears.
No, it's
streaming down your own face.
Like Aquaman by the time you're done. And that's the part about this that's so gorgeous, is he just reaches out his hand, and she puts her hand in his. And the fact was, like, it takes a lot to be Batman, but that day he just had to hold a little girl's hand. That was it. That was the most Batman motherfucking thing he could have done, was just be there for that little girl right then. And he does.
Yeah.
He owns the moment.
Which is the crucial catalyst for Amanda Waller to realize, oh, we've been going about this all wrong.
Right.
And the world will always need a Batman. And as she tells Terry McGinnis over the course of the episode, we worked together. He stopped a lot of threats, but over the years we started to see him wear down because he's just a man. And we knew that we would have to step in and ensure that there was always a Batman. And huge spoilers here.
I want to be fair to anyone who's listening. If you actually are enticed enough that you want to watch all this, we've spoiled some stuff, but we haven't spoiled everything. Pause it, come back to us later before he says what he's about to say. Go, Dave.
All right. Terry McGinnis, who we always assumed his father was killed by the corporation he worked for. We learned that was his adopted son. That Terry was his adopted son. Terry is quite literally the clone of Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know. I don't remember if we actually had a bit where we realized where Bruce. I don't know that Bruce knew, but at the beginning of that episode,
clear about whether Bruce knew how well this was planned and how much it was centered around him. That remained undone.
But Terry and Bruce had a major row. He was sick of Bruce. He was sick of his Batman shit. He wanted to get married to Dana from the Batman Beyond series, and being Batman had just screwed up his life. But then after hearing,
it was an existential thing for him because he felt like he was always fated to be this, and that Bruce was always so far ahead of him intellectually that he was never going to be able to make a real choice for himself. And that's actually key. That probably tells us, though, that Bruce didn't know was his consolation prize at the end of this is that, well, it's Amanda's fault, not Bruce's.
And I get the feeling that it is Bruce Wayne, so he did know, but decided it's probably best not to ever bring that up unless it absolutely comes to it.
If you can get away with not having that conversation, do
Bruce.
so.
But after hearing what Amanda Waller has to say and realizing who he is in terms of lineage and what kind of man Bruce really is, we have this very touching scene where Terry takes it in stride and he goes back to Wayne Manor and we see Bruce has dropped his pills. And he's much older than we saw him in Batman Beyond. And he's on the ground fumbling for his pills. And Terry just goes in and picks up the pills.
To watch. It really does. Because
it does.
Bruce Wayne on his knees fumbling for pills.
And Terry comes in and picks up the pills for him. And they just kind of have this unspoken conversation where they both know we're cool. And then Terry goes back out as Batman.
He's accepted his fate as like, no, I will proudly take this mantle.
Yeah, and he goes right back out with the Batman suit on, and they do a great little homage because they thought it was going to be the last one. They do a great homage to the first episode on Leather Wings, where you see the Man-Bat fly by the police blimp, and you hear Kevin Conroy as a police officer inside the blimp go, "What was that?" or "Did you see that?" or whatever it was. And they go back to the old Shirley Walker theme. They do the Batman Beyond theme for a minute, then they go back into the old theme, and you see Terry McGinnis fly by the police blimp, and the shadow flash by the police blimp, and you hear the same Kevin Conroy voice in a police officer in the future go, "Did you see that?" But it was a touching way to end out a universe. And I mean, it's canon, just because they did like a few more episodes, 20-something, 16, whatever it was, episodes after, 12 episodes, I think, maybe. But it doesn't nullify that at all for me. It's I mean, this is a canon that you can't ignore. It
can stand on its own. They could have put that episode anywhere.
Yeah, this is by far the best DC has ever been on screen, which is why we're talking about it, which is why we've devoted 2 episodes now to it.
Right.
This is the high bar. This is what
if anyone came to hear us bitch about this, too damn bad. Just too damn bad for you. It's not going to happen. This is the golden standard. This is what everything's supposed to be striving for. We'll sit there all day and rip apart everybody who's basically not doing this well enough. No, we don't want you to remake the animated series. We just want the same level of respect.
Yeah, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's and in many cases it was broken, and these guys fixed it. The guys who did the animated universe, the Batman the Animated Series through Justice League Unlimited, these guys fixed so much shit that was wrong in the DC universe. So much so that the comic books adapted their origins, adapted their characters, took, as Kevin Smith on Fat Man and Batman says, they added spokes to the wheel. And you can't ignore that. This is so much. I mean, you talk about like, well, I'm not going to go back and listen to the old radio shows of the old Superman radio shows just because they added kryptonite to the mix. Well, that's fair, I guess, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about there are character arcs here. There are stories. There are characters that didn't exist before this show, before any of these shows. These are
damn good characters.
Damn good characters. This is an invaluable insertion into DC canon.
It really
I think
is.
that's all I've got to say about it. It's, we could go on for hours more about individual episodes, how good they were. You didn't get into...
Which would amount to us just watching a bunch of episodes and doing commentary. And the commentary would be roughly, oh my God, that's awesome. Oh my God, they did that great. It's just, we'd do nothing but laud it for the amount of time that we talked about it. This conversation has no kryptonite.
And it occurs to me that we might not be as funny as we generally are when we're just heaping praise upon a thing. But
I'm not going for a joke here. I'm just honestly
there's nothing to joke about.
Expressing how much I love this material. Period.
Yeah.
I mean, and by the way, epilogue among the many things that episode did really well. And seriously, you've got to watch some like 200 episodes to get to it if you do it in canon and keep it all straight. And it's completely worth it. It really is completely freaking worth it. But there's a line in there. You remember this line when she's talking about why she redid Batman, or why she decided that Batman had to be around the whole time? Maybe the angels need a sharp sword too.
Oh, that's a good line.
One of my favorite lines describing just why a vigilante is necessary. Why? Because I understand people who just don't like vigilantism as just outright. I get the instinct, but it's a pretty black and white version of a very gray tale, and within that gray you find those words, and you can't put it better. Yeah,
great show, great humor. One of my favorite bits was the government has taken hold of the Question, who's an insane conspiracy theorist, but really quite sharp.
Not even,
and he's
insane.
Not giving up.
He's a conspiracy theorist, but he's actually right a lot.
Right, he's right a fair amount of the time, and they've got him tied up, and they're electrocuting him, they're torturing him for answers, and he's just spouting random conspiracy theories, and we get to an apex of torture, and they think they're about to get something out of him, and his response about the Justice League and their real plans and all this shit, and what we get is he says, the plastic caps on shoelaces are called aglets, but their true purpose is sinister.
That line, I paused it because I wanted to think about it for a second. Some part of it made sense. Some part of it like instinctively made a little bit of sense to me, but I couldn't prove it.
They're true. I just love
their true purpose is much more sinister.
Yeah. Oh my God. And they even do a send up of the Fox News guys, they've got like a Rush Limbaugh / Glenn Beck type of guy who's very against superheroes. And one of my favorite bits is like the Flash getting roped into it and going on the show. But the guy and Batman's just telling him, leave it alone. And the guy, just to mirror how ridiculous some of these Glenn Beck types are, though. This guy they've got up there is screaming, since the Justice League, half of marriages end in divorce, and the other half ends in death.
Yeah.
And the crowd is like, yeah, Justice League, what are they doing? It's great. It's just great. You have these little bit, it's just crazy enough to work. Almost too crazy.
Hell,
but
even in epilogue, that this huge culmination episode that seems like it's so deep, and it really does. It goes from the animated series straight through Mask of the Phantasm, all of it.
It does. They do. They bring in Mask of the Phantasm.
They do. And even then, though, she's sitting there telling him this whole story about how she came up with a plan. She came up with a project, or she named a project called Batman Beyond. And that was the name of the project that she gives this whole conspiracy. And she said, well, the first step was to get Bruce's DNA, which was easy. He left it all around town. And then she looks back at Terry, not remotely how I meant that. Not even remotely what I meant.
There's some really great humor in that, in the entirety of the canon. Which is, a huge red flag for these WB executives who think that no humor is the way to go on these movies.
Oh, by the way, that leaving his DNA around town thing, it's been one of my qualms with Batman's mythos for a long time, is I'm sure Bruce Wayne's DNA is on file somewhere.
Yeah.
And he gets hit a lot. If I ever get to write Batman, the first thing I'm doing is inserting some part of the story where he went into the GCPD files and put Bruce Wayne's DNA in there proper, and then changes his DNA slightly, not to actually enhance himself in any way, just to make sure that one chromosome somewhere doesn't show up exactly where it's supposed to.
Right. Well, why would you do that when you have someone like Commissioner Gordon on your side?
Because
as we discussed, we're pretty sure
to labs. I mean,
yeah,
you can get a DNA test for like a few $100.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you have to have legal standing to do so, but I'm guessing for a few $100 more, you don't have to have standing if you find the right lab tech.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's a qualm. But
first thing I'm doing, I'm either going to have Batman go in through and put in like a computer virus that rewrites everyone's history of what Bruce's DNA should look like, or the other way around. I'll have him change his actual DNA. Either way.
Well, if Bruce is ever, like we've seen it time and again, whenever he's like actually even mortally injured or possibly mortally injured. I mean, he doesn't go to a hospital. His ass goes to the Batcave and Alfred stitches his ass up. Or he goes to the little clinic and Leslie Tompkins stitches him up enough so he can get back to Alfred. Dude doesn't go to a hospital.
Yeah. Oh, and if anyone decides, by the way, that they're just going to skip the movies because they're not on Netflix or it's not easy enough, there's one line in Mask of the Phantasm where he's talking to his parents' grave, crying because he's found a girlfriend and he's actually really happy. And he keeps asking the grave, please tell me it's okay. I never counted on this. I never counted on being happy. You make it through that scene. You make it through that damn scene. Good Lord.
And Jason's description of the scene undercuts it completely, by the way. This isn't just some girlfriend. This is like he's about to marry this girl. Like
he's in love. He's genuinely in love. He starts the conversation out with the tombstone by saying, you know, I think he says it just doesn't hurt as much anymore. I'm sorry. He's finally moving on with his life. Like his parents' death isn't just the single overwhelming drive in his mourning. He finally wakes up looking forward to something, and as he puts it, never counted on being happy.
And to be perfectly clear, this isn't some Christopher Nolan, I've been around as Batman for a couple of years and now I'm gonna not be because of some chick. This is for all we've said about how they'll actually go ahead and give villains their proper origin story with like a big two-parter. Mask of the Phantasm serves as a proper Batman origin. We see him he goes off to train, he's come back, and he's about to start his life of crime fighting in Gotham when he meets Andrea. So he's not even Batman proper. This is a flashback portion, and we know he will become Batman, and that relationship won't work out. We just don't quite know why yet. I believe we do have a good idea. It's a heart-rending scene, man. It really gives a fullness to Bruce's character, and even when you pop into
as much as we all love
Batman
Year
Beyond,
One, this is as far as a Batman origin goes, this is on par with how good that is.
This isn't, by the way, a CW bashing you over the head with this kind of shit situation. You'll get little bits here and there. Yeah, you earn it, and there are little bits throughout the series. Like in Batman Beyond, there's an episode where Talia comes back, Ra's al Ghul's daughter, and she's finally ready to be with Batman. And he's like, "But I'm old, and you're young. Obviously, you've been using the Lazarus pits." And she's like, "Well, we've perfected the pits. It's not a big deal. We can stay young, and I want to make you young again." But right before she comes back, Bruce is like sitting in the cave, and he's lonely. He's old and he's lonely, and you see him looking through like almost Facebook pictures. They're not Facebook pictures, but they're pictures of him with different women that he's
Bat computer version of a scrapbook.
Right, and he's like looking through pictures of the women he's loved. Like he's reminiscing and thinking, doing the whole what could have been. And everybody from Andrea to Barbara Gordon is in there.
Yeah,
and
it's a guy that can stand next to gods, but he is human.
And that's a particularly disturbing episode.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even like thinking about that one because the twist on it's just it's good television, but it still gives me the creeps.
It's so messed up.
It is. Now, I mean, is there anything we haven't covered? Oh, by the way, if anyone has copies of Zeta, contact us.
Yeah, if you
we
can't
find that shit anywhere.
There is the Zeta Project. It is a spin-off of Batman Beyond. It doesn't have an ending. The ending of the series is basically what you get at the end of that the pilot episode of Batman Beyond, because WB canceled the show. But it is part of the DCAU canon, the Diniverse canon. Not terribly important.
I have no idea if it's good. I don't know. It could be the best thing in it.
Yeah, we can't find copies of it. I think they released half of a season on DVD somewhere at some point. It didn't sell well enough, so they never released the rest of it. Anyway,
I can't find that anymore.
Anywho, I think that wraps it up for us. Go check out Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Static Shock, Justice League Unlimited. All of these things are fine things, and be sure to check out
Don't
the movies
forget Return of the Joker while you're at it. Fantastic.
Return of the Joker. These are great things. Sub-Zero is, oh man. Oh, just the Mr. Freeze storyline in general.
If you find yourself after all of that still needing more, well, they've got all these direct-to-DVD movies, a lot of which are voiced by Conroy and Daly. They're not. Yeah. None of them are precisely in canon after that first. I mean, pretty much after Unlimited ends, that story ends. But they're still really good. A lot of these movies are just as good as anything else that's out there. And a hell of a lot better than the actual live-action stuff that's made it so far. Here's hoping.
I would completely agree with Jason on this point. But yeah, if you want a great precursor to just about anything in the comics, go look at all of that stuff, man. Go look at the animated series stuff, because God,
say you're not a reader. Say you've made it this far. Like, say you watched Man of Steel and suddenly decided that you liked DC Universe, and somehow you found this podcast. Well, first of all, you're impossible, so I'm not talking to you. But if you've actually ended up in that situation...
Don't listen to Jason. Please keep listening to us.
If you've actually found yourself in that situation, you want to find out what BVS is really going to be about, there's a cheat code. They released The Dark Knight Returns, Part 1 and 2. It's a straight-to-DVD movie. It's the most honorable preservation of that material I've ever seen.
I would agree.
It's almost shot for shot in some cases. Now, thankfully, the animation looks much better than Miller's drawings, but it's, oh my God, it's good.
It is. That's going to wrap it up for us this week. Go check out that stuff, man. Seriously. We are DC on screen.
We'll be back to bitch about other things at some point in the future.
Well, we'll be back next week. I don't know what we're going to be talking about exactly.
Well, that's still being worked on. I'm sure we've been griping about something and how it's not as good as all this crap.
Right. We are DC On Screen. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, or DCOnScreen.com, as well as Facebook. If you like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and would like a podcast about that, go check out our friends Matt Carroll and Jeff Randall at the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. That is mcucast.com. You can find them on iTunes and Stitcher as well. Leave us some feedback. We'll get back to you on the show. We'll mention you on the show. We'll respond to you directly on our recording. It's amazing, and podcasts do that. So, hey, Let's try that out. We did it a couple of weeks ago. Also, if you are so inclined and would like to hear more of us, which we'll keep doing it for a while yet anyway, but please go give us some reviews, some favorable reviews, 5-star ratings on Stitcher and iTunes. We'd love to hear from you. I'm David C. Robertson of Maladjusted.tv. This is my co-host, Jason. I've never done that before.
I was supposed to say something. No, we never have. Hello.
That was on me, folks. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Take it easy. Go watch some Batman, y'all.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.